everyone, welcome to Zon in Canada. I'm your host, Jesse Betteridge. Joining me this time around is our good friend Eryn Dearden. Eryn, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi there, Jesse. Thanks for having me back.
So, it's been an extended hiatus. I do apologize for that. I think this has been our longest hiatus yet, and I do have a reason. It's because I had as many others have, I've had a awful throat infection for over 3 weeks, and it still hasn't completely gone away. I still have a bit of a cough, and that really does suck when you both do a podcast and work in a call center. But I've pulled myself together enough for the most part, and I can finally get on with the show. So thanks for your patience, everyone. Eryn, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I've been in similar straits the last few months. I was sick in December and January, both of which cut into my recording and editing times for my YouTube channel. And I've still got a little bit of a lingering asthma cough after the fact.
Yeah, even when you have your own channel or your own show or some kind of income based on personal projects like that, getting sick is still gonna it's gonna be even more disruptive than with other forms of income too. So we're getting by at least. So this episode we don't really have a particular focus, but we've been on a hiatus so long that I think a lot of interesting things worth talking about have sort of piled up since then. Before we kind of get into the meatier topics, Eryn, have you been watching any anime lately, or even just other things as well?
Well, I haven't watched a whole lot of full series, but I generally don't anyway, so that's nothing new. Actually, I think by that standard, I've been watching more than I normally do, because I've taken anime hiatuses in the last few years. Recently, I did manage, though, we're probably going to talk about this later, so I'll save the details for now. I managed to make it through all of Devilman Crybaby on Netflix.
What a trying task that is.
I wouldn't say so. Like,
I was being sarcastic. It's difficult to not get through the whole thing.
Oh, I thought you were talking about, like, the sex and the violence and the all the tit boobies.
I guess some people don't like that. Yeah.
I know that some people would legitimately have a trying time getting through that series.
Yeah. Fair enough. And I assume you've been watching Pop Team Epic.
Yes, I was about to say that's the other one. That's the other one I'm really keeping up with. There's some others I'd like to go back to and catch up with, like Violet Evergarden, which I think we'll talk about at some point, and After the Rain, which looked like a gorgeous show. I've only seen the first episode, but I'd like to watch a few more.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I checked out the first episode of After the Rain too. It was pretty beautiful show. It's really well directed. I can't say it really grabbed me too much. Like other people are saying, I know a lot of people were turned off by the show's premise. Which, yeah, I guess it is. I can see that being seen as kind of skeevy. I think the execution has been good, but that's just based on the one episode that I've seen.
Because the focus isn't on, like, oh, this relationship, oh my. It's just about, like, well, some kids have feelings like this, I guess.
It seems, again, based off the one episode I've seen, it's mostly based on sort of immature adolescent pining, but I don't know what direction it's ultimately going to go in, so it's probably, or what it already has gone in, so.
I've been told that the manga has not gone anywhere creepy yet, so that makes me hopeful.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. I think I heard it was ending soon, so.
As long as they don't pull like a bunny drop at the end or something, then they'll be good, I think.
Yeah, well, in that case, you can at least just pretend only the anime existed for that one. Yeah, and for Pop Team Epic, you know what? I actually didn't like the first episode when I watched it the first time. I guess my girlfriend and I watched it together. We just didn't know what to expect in it, really. And doing the whole play the same episode over twice thing, I guess it can kind of rub you the wrong way when you're not expecting it.
Right.
But we were convinced to give the show a second try with episode 2, and episode 2 just totally sold us on it. I mean, that's where you had the first felt animation segment, and those have been my favorite so far. I've been I love let's pop together. That's my favorite bit in the whole show so far, for sure, as it is for other people, I'm sure. I really want to see Uchu people who did those segments, do another one. I like to think that they're very hard at work at the next one, and that the reason we haven't seen it is because it's just taking them so long to get it just right.
Probably.
I hope we see at least one more of those stealth animation segments before the end. But the scene that really sold us in episode 2 was when it just kind of cut to that improv live action segment in the recording studio.
Yes.
And,
oh my god.
with like the weird J-horror elements in it. And the funny thing is, like, if you're one of those people who only watches one half, or the first half of a Pop Team Epic episode, you really missed out on episode 2 if you didn't watch the second half. So if you only been watching the first half of each episode of Pop Team Epic, go back and at least watch episode 2.
I'm a little disappointed that they haven't done more with the second halves in any other episode, really, other than the different voices. But
that change in voice actor is really meaningful for a lot of people who follow Seiyu closely.
Especially when they do the songs.
Yeah, and they're doing the whole rotating voice actors thing in the English dub too. Mm-hmm. I haven't really watched the English dub, so I don't know how they're handling like the live action.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
been able to just because I'm not on Funimation right now.
Me neither. I am very much waiting for Verve to finally launch in Canada, so I can kind of consolidate services a little bit. But the rotating between voice actors, which I think that's probably going to resonate more with people watching it in English. I really hope they get some voice actors outside of LA and Texas in on that too. I'd love to see a Scott McNeil and Brian Drummond dub episode of Pop Team Epic. And those guys are both they're in contact with people with Funimation. They've used them before. Brian Drummond was in a recent episode of Dragon Ball Super as the evil mirror Vegeta, which was that's some fun stunt casting there. But yeah, I am anxiously looking forward to the rest of Pop Team Epic, and I did pre-order the Nendroids too. So
oh, nice. Well, those Nendroids really go with everything.
They do. It's a good fit. I really want like the felt dolls though. Those would be those would look really great on a shelf. Yeah, I think I'm the only person still watching Osomatsu-san right now. Nobody, the conversation seems to like have completely died on it, at least from
and I can't really say much because I watched the first few episodes and really enjoyed them, but I couldn't really get past there because I kind of felt like I'd seen a lot of what it had to offer by that point, at least for me.
Yeah. Episode. I mean, admittedly, season 2, it kind of. I don't think it's never gotten bad, but it has. It's gotten kind of. It has declined a little bit in season 2. It's it's not as shocking as I think a lot of people expect it to be. Maybe not always as sharp with its parodies. Although I will say that it has started to pick up again in the last few episodes. Episode 16 had this it starts off with this awesome space adventure Cobra parody. I mean, even if you don't want to get back into Osomatsu-san, I recommend at least watching the first segment of that episode 16. It's great stuff.
I probably should check out at least like someone's recommended list of highlight episodes because I would like to see a little bit more at least, but I don't want to watch a whole series. I think of that. I should say the reason I started watching it finally after being recommended it for so long was as part of research for my YouTube series Maho Profile because of the connection that the creator of Osamatsu-kun, Fujio Akatsuka, has to one of the original Magical Girl series back in the late 60s. So that was a fun trip to go through.
I love that kind of stuff. That's a fun kind of thing to explore for sure. All the fun networks that were going on between the mangaka back then. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, specifically the connection I was chasing was the fact that the character of what's her face, Totoko, is basically the same character design as Ako-chan from that anime.
Oh, you're right. I never. I think now that you mention it,
it's especially obvious in his original manga, but yeah, you can tell even in the animated versions.
Yeah, that's interesting. An interesting observation that is almost certainly completely valid. I've also been watching A Place Further from the Universe. That has been that one's been a lot of fun so far. Great production on that one. Really fun characters. It doesn't make me want to go to Antarctica, but I can at least appreciate another character's passion for it. Although, I think the in terms of depicting female characters, the show has done a fairly good job. It definitely helps that the show apparently has a female director as well.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
You know what? I'm actually going to double check that and edit the comment out if I'm wrong, but I believe it has a female director. They're still anime characters at the end, but I find that the characters are fairly well realized. The only issue I have is that you have these teenagers who are just like, or the main character at least is determined not to, waste her youth, which is not an attitude an actual teenager would ever have, or could ever have. So you're kind of there's definitely that element of adult projecting on a character there, but it's still a lot of fun. I'm enjoying that a lot. I'm still watching Darling in the Franxx for some reason, even though it's
I'm not watching that, but I'm really enjoying the Anna Twitter comments.
The commentary is worth it. I mean, the show is pretty dumb overall, but it's it's still it's obviously ripping elements from like Evangelion and Eureka 7 and all these different popular mecha shows from the last 20 years. But I think it's just generally satisfying to just see that stuff on screen. And then you got stuff like the doggy style pilot formation, which is okay. The thing is that is inherently funny. And the show doesn't play it completely straight, but it does play it too straight. And I feel like this is not really a Trigger production; it's more of an A1 Pictures production. I do feel that if Trigger, specifically if Imaishi was directing it, I think that he would pull something like that off to greater effect, where he could really write off of the shock value and make it funny. Whereas it's just it just kind of comes off as a very poorly thought out innuendo with the current approach, but. I
feel like he would be more likely to do what I think I heard the crew at ANNcast suggest, which is to reverse the positions eventually on that.
I thought that was gonna be, as many others did. I thought that was gonna be the big reveal that 02, the reason that main character guy performs so well when he's finally with her is that because she's actually on top or behind. But that's not what's happened at all. But the show's, I guess it still has a very minimal level of intrigue that just kind of keeps people watching. People still want to see just what's going to happen next. But the show's already had a lot of opportunity to do something interesting, and it kind of squanders it each time. Maybe we just have. I think people are just giving the show a lot of goodwill because it's familiar.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. I think that's a big part of it.
Because it's Trigger, and you kind of like hope for good things from Trigger, and also you think, well, it's very blatantly drawing from shows like Evangelion and the like. It must be doing so for a reason, so the logic goes. So it might be like, what is that reason? Which is stringing people along. Yeah,
but I mean, you have this outrageous conceit behind it, and to have it be played out so kind of dryly is disappointing. Like the manga, at least, it's done by Kentaro Yabuki, who's the To Love-Ru guy. So it adds all this like gratuitous eroticism and nudity and stuff to it, which it works better because it's doing something with the concept. And whereas the anime counterpart is just kind of kind of stale in its approach to its own outrageous elements, but. I'll still keep watching it, I guess. And anything else?
Godspeed you.
Yeah. Anything else you've followed lately? Even non-anime?
Not really. I've been watching movies more than TV recently. I did try to check out the first few episodes of certain things, just testing out, like, I just recently started trying out Amazon Prime, so I've also watched the first episode of Land of the Lustrous, which I intend to watch more of.
Oh yes, that's a good one.
As movies go, I've been trying to catch up on some of the Oscar hopefuls, which as we're recording this, the Oscars are later today, which I shouldn't care about, but I am inexorably drawn to every year.
Yeah, I've cut myself off for a few years now, but I will not judge anyone who follows it with any level of enthusiasm. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it. Well, I guess it has to be some kind of enthusiasm, but it's more
some
of a morbid enthusiasm.
Yeah. That's still enthusiasm. Yeah.
But anyways, I also, in terms of like non-Oscar stuff, saw Annihilation recently.
Oh,
which
how was it?
Kind of blew my hair back. I thought it was kind of incredible.
Oh, I've been meaning to see it, but I haven't had a chance yet.
I understand some of the flaws of it. Like, I've heard some analyses of it after the fact by people who weren't quite as into it, and I acknowledge some of the problems they had with it. Like, specifically, I've heard from people who saw, say, Tarkovsky's Stalker, which is a very similar movie, which arguably executes the concept much better and with more relatable characters. And the fact that the characters in this one are kind of Americanized and militaristic in a way. But still, it's so visually and viscerally engaging that I can't discount the experience that my mind and body went through watching that movie.
So would you recommend seeing it and then seeking out the supposedly superior takes on the subject later?
Probably yes.
Okay.
And I'm told that you should check out the books that the series is based on as well.
Yeah, I've heard it. Some people have complained about it as an adaptation, but you know, if the movie does sound like a really good experience, so maybe see the movie and then look into the books after. In that case.
Yeah, like, I went in not even, like, realizing there was a book, and it works perfectly well without one. You can't tell it's an adaptation.
Yeah.
One thing, like, to connect this to anime and manga a little bit, since we're getting off that beaten trail a bit.
Oh, whatever.
one of the feelings that I got from that movie most strongly was that movie invokes a lot of body horror, and specifically I got kind of a Junji Ito vibe in the body horror for a lot of it.
Neat.
That kind of like organic, that kind of organic body horror.
I guess you haven't watched Made in Abyss yet?
Not yet, but that's on my list of things to check out.
Okay, well, the show delivers in that area for sure. Word of warning: the last 3 or 4 episodes will traumatize you and devastate you emotionally, guaranteed.
Hooray!
Yeah, but it's great, highly recommended. Another one to check out on Amazon, although it probably will be on High Dive eventually because it was licensed by Sentai as well. But High Dive doesn't have an like Chromecast or Roku or anything to let you watch it on a TV yet, so I can hold off on subscribing to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I really should get a Chromecast one of these days.
Oh, it's magic. I love it so much. So I guess I haven't yet really watched much else apart from anime. I've been busy with work and being sick and other things. I did. I finally saw Coco the other night. I like that a lot.
Oh yes, I did too.
Yeah, it's I think I felt it took a while to get going, but it hit all those Pixar feels. In the end, and I think it's a good production. It was certainly a better Day of the Dead themed film than The Book of Life was, which is
it's kind of sad because I really wanted to like The Book of Life too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did.
It was a beautiful movie, but
that it just shows that Guillermo del Toro's involvement with something does not in any way guarantee quality.
Yeah, I was happy to see though that like the guy who made The Book of Life, like, which is the main reason I didn't want to hate it, because he put so much passion into that movie, that he was not, like, bitter that people were liking Coco lots more. He was just very happy that people were trying to promote Latino culture on screen in major Hollywood movies.
That's good. And they did a very good job of that as well. I know they had to basically hire a co-director at some point to sort of repurpose and restructure it. And I think that was the right decision. I think it brought a lot of good to the film. I wouldn't say it's one of the best Pixar movies, but yeah, I liked it a lot. It's good.
Yeah, which is interesting because like I kind of feel like I want to put it as one of my favorite Pixar movies. It's just a weird mix of, for the first half it was like, all right, this is okay, it's kind of predictable, but it's okay, and the second half is like, this is my favorite Pixar movie ever.
Did you and I assume you saw well, obviously you saw Black Panther, I think.
Oh yes,
that's a given at this point.
You had to ask.
Yeah, I know, right? What's left to be said about Black Panther? It was awesome. Definitely one of the best.
Nothing that two random white people can offer.
Exactly. It's if you haven't seen Black Panther for whatever reason, you should go see that for sure. And did you see what else did I catch recently? That was I did you see Shape of Water?
Yes, I did. I liked it. I didn't love it, but it was really cute. And I really loved the production design and what it had to say and whatnot. I'm probably rooting for it at the Oscars, so this will obviously come out after they've come out, so we'll see how right or wrong about that I am.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty great overall. I really enjoyed it. It was definitely cute. It didn't have quite as much depth as it maybe could have in terms of its commentary, but I think it still worked pretty well. I did find that compared to his last couple of movies, Guillermo del Toro did he fell back on the Pan's Labyrinth formula quite a bit in this movie. And to be perfectly honest, I think it was for the better, because I thought this is significantly better than his last couple of movies. I'm not a big fan of Pacific Rim, and Crimson Peak is for a very niche audience. I will not say it was a bad movie or anything, but it definitely was not promoted accurately, and it really should have been like a smaller scale release for people who are really into like gothic romance and stuff like that.
And advertised as such, moreover.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think expectations play a big role in how you saw that movie. But I Shape of Water, definitely the best thing he's put out in quite a while. So I was
think
happy
so.
With that, yeah.
Because I really liked Pacific Rim, but I also acknowledge that it's not as well characterized as it could be, and doesn't pack even as much punch as it could in a lot of ways. But I enjoy it for what it is and what it was trying to be. Crimson Peak, I respect more than I like.
yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
But yeah, Shape of Water was just enjoyable.
Yeah. Have you caught any anime? I think I think the only anime we've gotten in theaters this year so far has been Fate Stay Night First Heaven's Feel film.
Of course I didn't go see that because I'm not a Fate person, and I heard that movie is very like fan pandery, so I figured, well, that's not for me.
I didn't really find that to be true. I mean, I never played the game. I'm not really familiar with. I mean, I've seen Fate Zero, I've seen Unlimited Blade Works, and I've been watching the food-oriented Fate series that's been coming out monthly, and you know, I've enjoyed that so far. The whole Heaven's Feel storyline is not something I'm familiar with. I still enjoyed it a lot. I did not find it to be pandery, or the way that some people have characterized it. I don't really understand where they're coming from. I think it seems to be building a narrative that adapts the story in an engaging way, and the animation is completely gorgeous on it. But it is very much part one of three. I felt that, you know, even at 2 hours, they could have introduced more of where this particular route is going, and I find pardon me, they didn't really do that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to part two. I hope that we get parts 2 and 3 in theaters here. It got quite a hefty run in Canada. I found. I was surprised. In the previous episode, Randy and I theorized that they may have determined the number of screenings based on how popular that Fate Go mobile game is in different areas, and it would not surprise me if that show is disproportionately popular in Canada, and they recognize that. If they're going to use that kind of gauge for things, I hope they do it more in the future, because it shows how concentrated the audience can be at times, and that you should, you know, take advantage of that. I'm glad the movie did get a push, though. As I kind of alluded to before, I'm a little disappointed with how theatrical releases are going for her anime so far this year, because there have already been almost 10 or more than half a dozen in the States so far this year, and Heaven's Feel, that was a holdover from last year technically, but it doesn't seem like a lot of the stuff is making it up here with the current lineup.
Like the Mazinger movie made it up here, right?
No, it didn't.
No, it didn't? I thought maybe I imagined that.
Yeah. I think I read of a lot of people who are in Canada going to the States to see it. But it did not make it up here. And to be honest, I wouldn't be entirely shocked. I can kind of understand them not releasing that one in Canada, because I'm kind of amazed that it even got a release in the US at all. That's almost a questionable decision, because that doesn't really have any traction. I mean, even in Quebec, it's all UFO robot Robo Grandizer or Goldorak that's popular, not Mazinger. I don't think they never even got Mazinger there. Mazinger is like again, just going in, as we'll go into later about Go Nagai. Go Nagai has never made anything that has captured Western or North American English speaking audiences really until Devilman Crybaby. That's the first one that has captured the audience over here.
Yeah, other than that, it's all been like fairly niche.
Very niche. So with Mazinger, like if that doesn't make it up here, I can understand. We are getting Nanoha later this month.
Oh yes, right.
Yeah. So I mean,
I probably will watch that. Like, I think it doesn't take place in the Strikers timelines, which means I could technically still watch it. That's the only Nanoha I haven't seen.
I think that's on Amazon if you haven't seen it yet.
What, Strikers?
I think all the Nanoha stuff's on Amazon now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you want to get everything under your belt before the movie comes out, I think I think Amazon does have you covered on that.
Well, I'm gonna have to get to it eventually. Maybe not this year, but eventually in my Maho profile project, we will hit Nanoha eventually.
Two other screenings that don't seem to be happening in Canada are Funimation's release of the first Eureka 7 High Evolution movie, and also Crunchyroll did that re-release of the second Cardcaptor Sakura movie that came out, and obviously they just added it to Crunchyroll. So at this point I'm going to assume that they're not going to roll it out in Canada. But to see those two companies not release those titles here, I think that's a little worrying for the potential direction of theatrical releases here going forward. Because I mean, admittedly, from what I've heard about that Eureka 7 movie, apart from the new opening that gives flashback footage of the first summer of love, it's not really that good. Or rather, as a movie, it's not really that good. It's mostly compiling footage from, the Ray and Charles episode. So a fairly strong series of episodes, but just as like a compilation or restructuring of the series, it doesn't really work that well. I've also heard that the footage they use from the series is still in 4:3 aspect ratio, which is appallingly lazy. Because at least I mean, okay, there's no way that this movie is going to be worse than the old movie, the first Eureka 7 movie that came out, Pocket Full of Rainbows. I think it had a different title here. I can't remember what they called it. But that movie is wretched, and I hate it. And it did something very lazy in that it reused a lot of animation from the series and just kind of traced over it. But at least when they did that movie, they at least formatted it to widescreen. To have High Evolution just kind of keep everything in 4:3. That seems really lazy. I think the aspect ratio changes throughout the movie, but still, that seems like a hack job. But in any case, the important thing is that they were able to get a U.S. release for that film. But despite the fact that Eureka 7, it aired on Bionics, it aired prominently on YTV, and the fact that they're not giving it a theatrical release, to me, it suggests that whoever was making the decisions of what theatrical releases to spread into Canada, they weren't aware of that. There's no way that
yeah, I was just thinking,
that you would know.
It seems like the ones that don't make it up here are the ones that are either very obscure or that are known to be somewhat lesser quality.
Hey, I mean, we got the Black Butler movie last year.
Yeah, but Black Butler isn't obscure. It's fairly popular with the young female audience.
It is, but
Canada and America.
Oh, for sure it is, but it didn't air on TV or anything like that. Eureka 7, even if it wasn't like the most popular show that aired on YTV, it had a very prominent airing. It reached a lot of eyeballs. A lot of people remember it. If you put it in theaters,
but they know the manga sells well up here, probably.
Yeah, but
it was definitely one of the better sellers when I worked at the comic shop.
I have no doubt about that at all. So okay, maybe Black Butler wasn't the best comparison, but I mean, this really seems like a big oversight. Eureka 7, Cardcaptor Sakura. Cardcaptor
Sakura is yeah.
Yeah. You could argue that like Cardcaptor's run on television here was more successful than its run on the US on US TV. I don't know if it was, despite the fact that we did get the whole thing, I'm not sure if I would say it was better received. Maybe it was a little better received because we got the whole thing. So that definitely helps. But I mean,
I would wonder if it's the fact that it's a second movie or like a sequel technically that didn't have a release here to begin with that's throwing them off a bit. Like, maybe there's enough of an audience they perceive in America to support it, but not quite enough to support a sequel movie where the first movie didn't come out in Canada.
I don't know. I think that to me, it's a sign of either a massive marketing oversight on the part of both of these companies, or a massive scaling back of getting theatrical releases up here. And it's kind of troubling, because the Nanoha movie, I think, is being released by King Records directly in North America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's not actually being done by
I wondered who was doing that.
Yeah, it's not being done by any of the specific distributors in the US, but the actual North American distributors are saying, no, we don't need to bother releasing this stuff in Canada. That is worrying if that's the case. And I don't know, we'll just keep our eyes on what's going to happen. I do hope that Funimation has the sense to release the Free movie up here when that comes out.
Oh, they better, because I'm not a Free person, but again, going back to my comic shop experience, that the merchandise for that sold pretty well, I'd say.
I'm sure it continues to do so. But Eureka 7 fans, they're probably not going to be up in arms over the movie not coming up here, but the Free movie not coming up here, they're going to hear about that. So I'm
going to be happy as long as those Love Live concerts keep coming up here.
Yeah, that seems to be pretty safe at this point. I think people made their case pretty clear when we didn't get the first Love Live, and now it's like, okay, this is worth our time and money, so we'll keep putting these up here. It's to me, it just underlines my ongoing suspicion that Crunchyroll, Funimation, they just don't put any resources into market research in Canada. Like the same when you walk into Walmart, you'll see copies of Cowboy Bebop, but you won't see copies of Escaflowne. Despite the fact that one of those shows, aired prominently on basic cable during the height of the Pokemon craze, and the other didn't up here. It seems like they're just kind of slapdashing stuff from the US and kind of ignoring the different way things have played out here. And
the specific history of those shows and what people might remember.
Yeah. And as we're seeing stuff unroll on Netflix, internationally, simultaneously, maybe that kind of thing is becoming less important. I don't know. But I think that when you ignore those differences, it causes, I think it can spur a lack of engagement with people that could just, cascade into less involvement in the market. Crunchyroll specifically, they really should have a team who focuses on Canada specifically. They do in Germany, they do in different South American countries, they do in Mexico, but not in Canada. When you're an international,
which is weird that they don't, because there is a very specific and vocal fandom in Canada that they can reach out to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Things are always changing with that company. So maybe we'll get on to the stuff that has been going on Netflix. There's been some interesting things going on there. One is Violet Evergarden. Have you watched any of it so far?
Just the first episode.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on that first episode that has created such a massive buzz since it was screened for the first time, I think a year and a half ago, or a year and a half before it first aired?
I enjoyed it. I wasn't particularly invested in it, I suppose. It was gorgeous, of course, but I almost feel like it's too gorgeous in a way. Because here's what I mean. There's certain scenes, most of the series is fairly serious from what I can tell. It's a war story, after war story.
Yeah.
But there are some scenes where they try to do comedy bits. There's a bit somebody has that standard whoa, I didn't mean it that way kind of reaction.
Yeah.
And it almost felt like the character model was straining against how intricate and pretty it was to make this standard anime comedy reaction.
Yeah, there are a few things like that in it for sure. I think overall I do like the visual style of it. I think it holds itself together fairly well. The direction is usually effective enough to work well with the high animation quality. I find that it, I am watching it week by week when it comes out, but more and more I'm finding that I'm doing that more to support the general idea of Netflix simulcasting a show, which again they are doing in Canada, but not in the US or Australia or a few other markets. That I am because I'm genuinely enjoying it. I'm enjoying it enough to keep watching it. But you're right, there is something unengaging about it that, and I think it has a lot to do with. I mean the stories you get in each episode, it is largely episodic, and then it kind of goes into Violet's backstory here and there. I mean the stories are good enough. They're effective enough. They're maybe not as don't offer quite enough depth for the low-key style storytelling and direction that they're trying to go for in a lot of the episodes. But I mean, it works well enough. What I think is unengaging about the show is just they don't really sell the idea or the importance of these auto memory dolls who write letters to convey emotions and sway people's thoughts and opinions and relationships and stuff. And I think it kind of stems from the fact that this is all in kind of a half-baked alternate universe.
Yeah.
The thing is that the auto memory dolls and Violet's role as an auto memory doll, like that should be somehow more central to the universe that they're creating. If you're going to create a whole alternate universe, like you should structure it in a way that you can demonstrate the actual dire need or incredible importance of the women who do this auto memory doll job. And I feel like
why would that job have developed in this universe and not say our own at a similar time period?
Exactly. It feels like, the purpose of the half-baked alternate universe ultimately seems more because they want to depict a World War I that wasn't actually World War I, and they could just kind of ignore any actual
and a world where they could have like perfect automail arm prosthetics.
That too. But I mean, I find that if it had not been an alternate universe, the whole auto memory doll thing, it would feel the same.
I feel like I've seen this universe before in several other similar shows that are like vaguely Victorian fantasy, steampunk, whatever.
Yeah, but it's just the focus is in the wrong place in the world building, and that kind of that's I think that's why it fails to sort of grab you on a substantive level at least. And the common perception is like, it's kind of B-level storytelling with A-level animation. It does look gorgeous, but that's kind of what it's riding on up to this point. And Violet herself, I mean, the whole thing with her is that she has, these automail robotic arms, and she acts like a machine mainly due to the experiences that she had as a 10-year-old fighting in the war. Something that also this alternate universe doesn't seem to fully justify
I think that's one of the things that bothers me the most is I just don't buy the premise of her having been engineered to be this weapon of war. Like, why the show doesn't seem interested in answering that question even basically. So I have a harder time buying her role in that, and subsequently buying into her pathos as she is not in that life anymore.
Exactly, and the thing is that she acts like a machine. That's kind of the central crux of the series, is that she is exceptionally good at the physical act of writing letters, but it's the emotional thing the emotional element that she can't quite convey. And like having someone act like a robot like this, is that really in line with the experiences that she's had before? I think that's I think it's a bit of a poorly thought out characterization on a few levels.
The best defense I've read of her character was, I think, at the Anime Feminist blog, where I think it was either a writer they had there or a commenter describing how they related to her in terms of her possibly being like on the autistic spectrum, and how they felt it from that angle possibly. But even from that, as someone who's like mildly on the autistic spectrum myself, I didn't really feel it was being written that way. It was being written more from a standard, like, what are love?
Exactly, yeah.
kind of like crux
and
for writers.
The idea we're supposed to buy is that this is just because she's had like she's had such an inhumane sort of just life up until this point, and she's trying to get past that. But that's not how it works. That's not how people That's not how experiences or trauma works. Form a person's personality or how they carry themselves in life. So it's kind of a weird approach to that for sure. I mean, I still like the show. I'll keep watching it.
Yeah,
but
like I said, I liked that defense of her. Like I like that she's relatable on that level to some people. it's just not selling to me personally. I guess.
Well, that's the thing. It's not. I don't think that's the intention, though. I mean, you can.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid interpretation, of course, but yeah. But yeah, I do find that still my interest in the show is fueled more by, Netflix is releasing this thing the way they're supposed to, so we should probably support it. But if the show itself isn't like for people who don't have that attitude, I can't help but feel how they feel about watching the show. I find a lot of people are following it closely.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to be getting something out of it.
Yeah.
Like I've seen tweets being like reacting to the show week to week, being like, "Oh my god, Violet, no!"
Yeah,
somebody's engaged.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see because I'm still not sure why Netflix chose to have this show released like week by week in some markets, but wait to do the binge watching model in other markets. I do know that in the United States there is only one series that they ever actually simulcasted. It was a Canadian show. I can't remember the title of it, but it was the only time they ever did that. Everything else they've ever released has been all binge or it's just been binge or die. Binge or die. And also Australia is one market that's they're waiting on the binge model, but New Zealand is getting the simulcast model. The UK is getting the simulcast model. I think most places in Europe are getting the simulcast model. There's just still a few specific markets where
like nobody knows for sure why. I think I've heard a lot of people suspect that it might be due to whatever internal data that Netflix has on whether people prefer to binge or to watch intermittently in certain territories.
People have also had a theory that it's like a test case kind of thing to see compare different markets and see how engagement is when you're watching it by simulcast or by binge. But I mean, the thing is that the fact they didn't even try this at all shows that there are people at Netflix who are probably pushing for simulcast. And this may have been some kind of weird compromise that we wound up with. There's no way of knowing. I mean, that Netflix,
like people in the anime sphere have been complaining for a while that not simulcasting certain shows just kills whatever hype they had when people just go out and pirate the thing instead, and you have to wait.
And it's true, and there's no way that Netflix is ignoring that completely, or different executives or different people in charge of things at Netflix. I can't imagine there's a universal agreement on how to approach that.
Right. Like, there's an argument to be made that, like, Little Witch Academia could have been much, much bigger than it was if it had been coming out week to week.
Yeah, I only watched about 3 episodes of it and then stopped because I was just not interested at that point. I should probably go back to that one. It's not bad at all, but when you have all this,
it's on my list, but I've been like knee deep in other magical girl series, so I haven't made it there yet.
And I have been going back and watching Kakegurui as well. Although I am resisting. I am enjoying it a lot, regardless of the fact that it's it's pretty, as a gambling anime, it's kind of stupid. But it's a lot of fun though.
Name me a gambling anime that isn't some shade of stupid.
Akagi is excellent. It's one of the best shows ever, and the manga just ended I think a couple months ago, and it was like the entire, like for the last over a decade, it was basically one game of mahjong going for that entire, like the anime ends with that same game that has been going on for the last 10 years in the manga.
Oh my
god. But the anime just cuts it off after a certain point. The manga just kept going and going and going and going. It was like the most epic, the most traumatizing, I guess, for the individuals involved game of mahjong ever played. I should probably seek out at least the ending of that manga. I'm kind of curious about how it all ended. But with Kakegurui, I am resisting the urge to binge it. I don't want to give Netflix the satisfaction. But we're starting to see Netflix's actual original shows coming out. Obviously, they don't fully fund anything. These shows still have.
Yeah, they're still mainly just a distributor.
Yeah,
but
you're getting shows which I guess technically would be called ONAs, which do not air on Japanese television at all. So I mean, Devilman Crybaby was the first one that came out, and also Be the Beginning just came out, I think, a couple days ago. I've seen nobody talking about it, so it's probably not very good, or at least it lacks the elements that immediately grabbed Devilman Crybaby, and it shows that just simply releasing an anime that way is not going to guarantee that it's going to take off and become some huge phenomenon. But Devilman Crybaby certainly has the elements that allowed it to do so very quickly, and it's bizarre because I live on the West Coast, and when a Netflix show drops, it drops right at midnight for me. And when Devilman Crybaby came out, it was just like, wow, like this whole thing is right here, and like no regular viewers on Earth have watched the whole thing yet. That is kind of weird. like episode 10, it's just there. No one has seen it yet. I'm sure some people skip to the end. They're just like, oh, I already saw the OVA and am on Apocalypse of Devilman, and I want to see if they do that battle with Satan at the end. And they do. It is the first animated version of Devilman that fully adapts the manga and right to the end. But yeah, just launching the whole thing was they haven't done that before, and it was kind of weird.
It was a big success for them, I hope.
It seemed to be. I mean, with it, by the end of the next day, people were just losing their minds over Devilman. Like, it's so bizarre.
Distant Anna Twitter screaming.
But yeah, this is, and like I mentioned earlier, this is the first time a Go Nagai property has really grabbed anyone in the West. I mean,
yeah, first time a Masaki Yuasa production has, in fact, even.
I don't know. I mean, he's had some success. Mind Game is pretty popular with, I think, even a lot of film fans.
I wouldn't call that like a mainstream smash hit.
No, it had crossover success with just a lot of film fans in general. And it was on Netflix as well. But yeah, all these things just kind of converged in Devilman Crybaby in a way that I don't think anyone really expected.
Yeah, like I've seen this show go way mainstream. Like you see like the PewDiePies of the world talking about it even. Yeah. Like what even business do you have talking about that? But still.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is that Devilman has been such a huge, seminal, influential thing in Japan for so long, and I mean it's just been impossible to get anybody to care about it in the West. And I mean, it's understandable because, I mean, you watch that old OVA. I mean, there's some nice animation in segments of it. But it really does nothing to try and sell you on the idea of Devilman at all. It's really badly paced and dragged out.
Especially if you're watching that dub.
Well, you have to watch it dubbed.
You have to watch this
you
dub.
have to, if you watch it OVA, you have to watch it dubbed. And I'm sure Discotech's gonna license that and put it out with the dub, painstakingly restored. I have no question that they're gonna do that.
Please do.
Those old piss fuck manga UK dubs are they are worth preserving for sure. Yeah, but I mean the OVA it only adapts a small part of it, and of course there's the old 70s Devilman TV show, which
that has been released.
It has been released, but it's been a super niche thing. I know that since Devilman Crybaby has been launched, apparently the Devilman DVD has been selling like crazy. Apparently it was number 1 on Right Stuff for a while, which is insane. And I don't know what people are expecting with that old show.
I'm all for people discovering the silliness of 70s anime.
Yeah, for sure. I mean that show has nothing to do with the manga either, and it's not because they were like trying to tone it down or censor it. It's because the projects diverged. It started as from what I understand, when Go Nagai, they wanted to adapt his old manga, which is the Dante demon thing.
Yeah, Dante something.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, can you just kind of redevelop this into more of a marketable super anti-hero kind of thing? And he made Devilman, and they sort of did the production work, but then Go Nagai's like, oh, I kind of want to take this in a different direction, a darker direction with the manga. And he just did something completely different with that. And the manga is really, obviously the anime had a big impact, because it actually it aired in like actual prime time on Japanese TV, which is something was rare then, and you would never see now, because nothing except for variety shows run at those time slots in Japan now. But the manga is what
that theme song certainly has
Oh,
had a longer lasting legacy than the show itself.
I agree, and Devilman Crybaby was right to renew that legacy, and garner new interest through Devilman no Uta, which I am still listening to constantly on my MP3 list. In fact, that was a big mistake they made, was not releasing that on iTunes. You can't actually buy the soundtrack on there. Which Aniplex is usually pretty good for. I know they produce Devilman, and usually they try to get a lot of the songs out for legal purchase, but they did not with this one. And that was a big mistake. They're probably gonna do an overpriced CD release here at some point, and they'll probably do a low enough print run that it will sell, and they'll be able to say that it sold out, so they can continue with that practice.
And not that I would buy this, but I know that the Japanese edition, I think, has a vinyl edition as well. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I do kind of want that, but
if only for the cover art.
Yeah, for sure. So what were your thoughts? I mean, what was your familiarity with Devilman before Crybaby came out?
Mostly just as like a weird factoid, like an anime factoid. Like, wow, this show existed and it was super violent, and it had a guy with funny devil wing hair. I've used it as an example before. Just to show non-anime fans like the silliness of old anime character designs.
It delivers in that area for sure.
Other than that, the only major Devilman thing that I had in my life was another adaptation of Devilman no Uta, which was done by perennial favorite Platina Jazz.
Oh yeah,
it's done a lot of great anime covers.
They did that a long time ago, and now it's popping up in like everyone's YouTube algorithm all over again, because now people are going back and uncovering this thing that was done like 5 years ago. The cascading effect of the reaction of the show has been crazy. What did you think?
But other than that, I didn't know much. Other than, I guess, leading up to Devilman Crybaby, I saw people digging into the manga to just familiarize themselves with what they were getting into beforehand. And I saw the pages of the manga going around with all those very memey shots that you've probably seen, like it's laced with drugs.
Yeah, with all the Control-Alt-Delete, or art that looks like it may have inspired Control-Alt-Delete, which almost certainly wasn't the case. My understanding is that they have actually cleaned that's all from the first chapter of the manga, and apparently that art has been revised in all the recent editions of the Devilman manga, and that is apparently the version that 7 Seas will be putting out. So if you were looking forward to those BU faces in the first chapter of our edition, we're not going to get it. Which
I am looking forward to getting it, because I'm very glad they're putting that out.
Yeah, I should probably pre-order mine, because it's probably going to sell out. I
really also want to get the Cutie Honey edition. I can't remember if that's out already or not.
I can't say that I am super interested in picking up the 70s Devilman TV series. I haven't really seen it apart from a few clips and the opening, but I'm certainly interested in the Cutie Honey original anime. That's always been very interesting.
I'm looking forward to that.
And actually, on that note, I think the closest we've ever had to a Go Nagai adaptation that really got people's attention up to this point was the Re-Cutie Honey OVA. Even though it never got actually released here. But I mean, that first episode of the Re-Cutie Honey OVA, I think up until this point, that was the best thing that was the production that did the best job of sort of selling a Go Nagai property to people who may not have been familiar with it before.
Right. And the one that might have had the most notoriety might have been the live action Cutie Honey that I think, what was that, Hideaki Anno did that?
He sure did. Yeah. And that movie was the reason that OVA got made. Also, with that OVA, I think the first episode is the only one really worth watching. Episodes 2 and 3 are kind of whatever. I hope that gets licensed at some point. And there's the new.
Well, with Cutie Honey Universe coming out.
Yeah, I wonder how that's gonna go. I have a hard like that first episode of Re-Cutie Honey. That's gonna be really hard to top. If they can even do something even approaching that quality for an entire series, I'll be seriously impressed. So we'll see. And also it's a TV series, so I mean, what's the censorship going to be like compared to something in the OVA as well?
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see. I'll be surprised if that can have as much of an impact as Devilman Crybaby has, or even if they're trying to do that. Like as with so much Go Nagai stuff, it's just sort of contributing to the feedback loop of people who are already big fans of it and have been for many, many years, because it's just so cemented in Japanese pop culture, which is something we're not in the loop on here.
Right, but now I think we're finally starting to be, like, baby steps, at least, in terms of mainstream anime fans going back to those original properties after they get interested in something like Devilman. Like, there's a lot of people who've gone back to that 80s OVA and even the 70s show, like you said, and are starting to discover, like, hey, 80s anime is kind of badass. Where can I find more, please?
Yeah, I actually didn't realize until recently that OVA was from the 80s. It looks really good for something from the 80s. I mean, it's not, like, a great production overall. And, you know, if you're going back from Crybaby and watching that, you're probably going to be a little disappointed with it in several ways, but it has some, you know, great looking moments.
And I'm kind of hoping that Cutie Honey Universe has a similar effect.
Yeah, I hope so too. I am cautiously optimistic about it, but I still kind of just want a DVD release of Re Cutie Honey more, because I just love that first episode. It's like still one of my favorite things. It's so great.
Also, I should random shout outs to one thing I've watched as a result of Devilman Crybaby is checking out the Chibi Go Nagai World OVA.
Oh yeah, people screenshots of those have been floating around as well. I didn't even know that existed before.
It was recommended as an alternative for people who wanted to watch Devilman Crybaby but knew they wouldn't be able to handle the gore or the sexual violence. So they would at least get a gist of who the characters are, and it's delightful.
Yeah. It's just so weird how this has all blown up. What of the series itself? What were you thinking? How did you just binge the whole thing, like, really fast? It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard not
to. 2 or 3 big chunks. Yeah.
Any thoughts on the show itself? I know that's a big question because there's a lot to say.
It's a masterpiece. Yeah. I even during parts where I wasn't fully sure how on board I was, like, there's some parts where the pacing feels really weird and the logic of what is happening feels really weird. It felt very intentional, and I was willing to go along with it anyway, and it paid off in dividends.
Yeah, not everything in the series works, but it does a very good job of keeping you glued to the screen and keeping your interest high enough that you'll keep watching the next episode. I think Netflix very much had an influence on the way the show was produced in that sense. Also interesting is that the show does not have an ending credit sequence at all, which I strongly suspect was a request of Netflix because they really hate you watching, like, the ending credits for anything. Yeah.
Which is, I did watch through the whole ending credits for episode 9, though.
Oh yeah, you have to for that one. Because it's just like, oh, it's not telling me to skip to the next episode. I guess there's something after the credits. Yeah. But yeah,
It's feelings is what's after the credits.
Yeah. The series feels like a really strong adaptation and a strong modernization, as well. A part of me still kind of likes more detailed and gruesome looking monster designs, whereas you kind of have the more freestyle Morphe squash and stretch kind of looks on all the monsters, like, in this, flat. Which I didn't always like, but so you can't always, like, a lot of the times you can't always appreciate, like, the design on this one monster over the design of this other monster. Everything kind of melds together sometimes, but it makes an overall.
It did make some of the more gruesome moments a little easier to swallow, though.
It does, yeah, and also the blood's all orange or yellow for some reason, which is a very weird choice. Not one I'm necessarily opposed to. Actually, it does. Like, as gory as the series is, it does make it a little easier to swallow with the stylistic choices it takes. Yeah,
because I think that does make it a little easier for, say, like, if you're generally not a fan of extreme gore, maybe you still won't like Devilman Crybaby, but there's a higher chance that you'll be able to enjoy what the series has to offer while engaging with that gory material, because it's not quite as visceral as it could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did really like the way they did the last episode. It did feel like they were crushing the entire Satan thing. It felt like they were kind of rushing it by doing it all in one episode, but I really like how that episode highlighted Well, I mean, it really highlights how much the Devilman manga has influence, because you're seeing elements of other things like Evangelion in there, of course. And I mean, the whole time one thing I couldn't stop thinking about was how incredibly obvious it was that this influenced like the Shin Megami Tensei series as well. Like everything in their interpretation of like Lucifer and Satan is
Clamp's entire back
exactly
catalog.
Yeah, like all that, you see all of that stuff just in that one little bit at the end of the manga with its depiction of Satan. It has that has influenced so much. And I mean, Go Nagai's own take on Christianity is kind of half researched. He has these elements that you can tell are accurate, and other stuff where that's like not even close to being correct. And like his sort of half understood interpretations is like you see that in Clamp stuff, you see that in Shin Megami Tensei, you see that in Evangelion and all that stuff. And which makes it kind of surprising for me that we had never seen the apocalyptic ending actually animated before in any other version of Devilman. It's taken this long to get like a full adaptation of the manga, but I guess it kind of goes back to that mentality that that the old Devilman TV series was one thing, the manga was another thing.
Yeah, I did wonder, because I've never seen like all the full OVAs before, and I wondered how far the one that's called Apocalypse of Devilman, I wondered how far
even the one called like Apocalypse of Devilman doesn't actually get to the apocalypse.
Oh, great. And just the way that they depicted the apocalyptic elements is just so good. Like I feel like I don't have enough words to describe it, really.
Yeah.
It's just
it
so masterfully constructed and so meticulously like planned in terms of symbolism and how it ties to everything else in the series.
Yeah, it definitely has a very negative perception on humanity, perhaps a little more than I agree with. But it's I'm willing to hear this perspective out. So
and actually, like it is pessimistic, but I feel like I came away feeling hopeful just because they gave enough focus on the one thing, which is don't give up on caring for people, don't give up on doing the right thing, even in the darkest of times. That was a very strong message. But even like at the very, very end, you get the sense that like this might not have turned out this way if something had been a bit different. And that, I don't know, I felt that note of slight hope in all the depression.
Yeah, I mean the whole baton pass kind of symbolism, it shows that humanity can work, but you ultimately have to rely on everyone, and you can't always do that. There's always going to be some kind of outlier that'll fuck everything up. And even if that person is Satan, but
yeah, like the one thing that bothers me the most, I think, is just the implication that this will be a cycle.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's taken from the original Devilman manga, from what I know.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that there's implied to be this repetition, that it's inevitable that this will happen. That's a little more depressing.
Yeah, and that's another thing it also carries over into specifically a rebuild of Evangelion too. That runs so deep, and of course there was also the subtle setup for Violence Jack at the end. I don't think we're actually going to see a Violence Jack Crybaby. That would be neat. I don't think that's really something that anyone needs. I wonder how many people who watch Devilman Crybaby were encouraged to go see Violence Jack. To go watch Violence Jack after that. Don't watch Violence Jack. It's not something you need to see.
Yeah, like, I guess if they brought Masaki Yuasa and Co back on again, I wouldn't be opposed to watching that.
Well, I mean, Crybaby has been such a success, they're probably going to be looking at some way to build off and capitalize it. And
certainly Masaki Yuasa gets carte blanche to do whatever he wants for whatever his next project is.
Exactly. I mean, I think Netflix is probably just more interested in having a project from him than they were in having Devilman. Because I mean, I'd be amazed if they were even able to sell Netflix on the idea of doing a version of Devilman. It's like, Devilman? Who cares about Devilman?
Well, I guess the studio was probably already planning on making it Devilman.
I mean, it's to coincide with the Go Nagai's birthday, which is this year,
the 50th anniversary. Yeah.
Or is it his? I think it was his birthday, or is it the 50th anniversary of Devilman?
It's a general Go Nagai 50th anniversary for something anyway. I've just heard it called a 50th anniversary year.
50th anniversary of what? He's not. He's
now
much
I'm
older than
wondering,
50.
like-
He's much older than 50. His 50th anniversary as a creator. That's what it is.
As a creator.
Yeah. But this kind of goes back to the most important aspect of it, though. Whereas Devilman Crybaby was this simultaneous international release that in a lot of ways transcended national borders. Which I never think. I'm always reluctant to say that because Netflix doesn't, really transcend national borders. They are an American company that's based 100% in the U.S. that is just happens to be available in many countries. But this is kind of the first time we've seen this with any anime. And I think it's neat that something was able to be this be this kind of equal simultaneous success everywhere at once. Yeah.
Just a literal worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah, literal worldwide phenomenon, which obviously, part of my goal on this show is to sort of flesh out the narrative and sort of establish the distinct importance of anime fandom in Canada specifically. And then, with Devilman Crybaby, when you have something that's just simultaneously everywhere at the same time, it feels like if we're going to see more stuff like this in the future, and I mean, like, it's hard to say if anything will ever replicate the success of Devilman quite so well. I mean, are we moving past this idea of things having specific impacts in different countries? I mean, probably. I think you could probably argue that we've already moved past that, but...
Well, there's definitely going to be still, like, different impacts in terms of how people are going to receive it, but yeah, in terms of, like, a specific experience of it being, like, a bigger deal or only available in certain areas, it's going to happen less and less, I think.
Yeah. Well, this will be interesting to keep an eye on. I know that Be the Beginning just launched. What other... Netflix said that they're launching like 30 anime this year, which is obviously they're not 30 ONAs that they're doing. They're like, that's going to... including the stuff that they've licensed. But I can't... have we heard about what they're going to do next? I don't think we have.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It'll be interesting to see. All right, well, Eryn, I think we can probably wrap it up there. Thanks a lot for coming on. Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on twitter.com/ErynCerise and youtube.com/ErynCerise if you enjoy idols and magical girls and floof and politics. You can follow me on either of those services.
The odds are good that you enjoy one of those things. Thanks a lot for tuning into Zon in Canada. You can reach me on Twitter @jbetteridge or email zonincanada@gmail.com. The theme song is by Ultraclystron. That can be found on his album Packet Flood, and you can buy that at ultraclystron.com. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play Music, or your podcast app of choice, and leave a rating and review if you have a chance. That would be really great. If you know anyone who might like this show, please recommend it to them. See you again.